Hi, I'm Miss Tina, and today we're going to make a quick banana bread, okay? Today we've got our ingredients already measured out. I've kind of started a little bit ahead of you. So all of the ingredients that it calls for to put in the bowl first are already in the bowl. So with this banana bread recipe, what it calls for is for you to put the first 6 ingredients in the bowl. So we have a KitchenAid mixing bowl here, nice and handy. What I've already done is I have put in, so far, I've put in the 1 cup of sugar. I've put in a 1/2 cup of margarine. I've put in 2 eggs with 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And I've also put in 2 medium bananas. I've put all of that in the mixing bowl already to get us started. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this mixing bowl over to the mixer and we're going to start mixing up all of our wet ingredients. What I like to do before I bake typically is put everything in small individual bowls to make sure that it's all organized. When I went to school, they had something called mise en place, which basically means everything in its place. So what you do is you kind of get small containers. You can get little glass bowls. You can get regular size bowls. I like to use these bowls. I put everything in these bowls first and get it all organized. So if you see here, the next set of ingredients are dry. So I've got my flour in here. I've got my baking soda and my salt because it calls for 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So because they're all dry, you can put all those dry ingredients right here in one bowl together. And the same thing with the wet. You can put all the wet ingredients together, and typically you can mix your sugar with the wet ingredients first. And the reason that is because if you put the flour with the wet too soon and you start to mix it, it actually develops the proteins. And if you've ever tasted someone's banana bread or zucchini bread or muffins and they were really chewy, that's because they put the flour and mixed it with the wet stuff too soon. And the friction mixed with the moist, that makes gluten. That's what makes the protein, and that makes it stretchy like a regular doughy bread. That's not what you want for banana bread or muffins, okay? So what we've done is we've put the wet ingredients, the eggs, the vanilla, like I said, the first 6 ingredients. We put those in the bowl, and we're going to take these and we're going to mix them on the mixer to get them all incorporated. It mixes for 1 minute. While that's mixing on the mixer, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to pound the walnuts a little bit because I want to make sure that when I put the walnuts in, that they're going to be nice and crunchy and ready to go, okay? And then we also want the oven. We want to make sure that we're taking this opportunity to preheat the oven. The oven is going to be preheated to 350. Something about baking, everything seems to be baked on 350. If you don't know, bake it on 350. That's a safe bet. And you just want to mix this until all the ingredients are incorporated. So what you're going to do is you're going to mix it on a low speed, and you're going to mix it till all your ingredients are incorporated. So you make sure your handle's lifted up on the mixer. Make sure your handle's lifted up if you have this type. If you don't, you can use a hand mixer. It's more than fine. If you don't even have a hand mixer, you can use a spoon. Just takes a little bit more elbow grease, and I'm a little lazy, so I like the KitchenAid. So we're going to mix that up for about a minute or 2. So while that's mixing, we're going to take the opportunity to pound the walnuts and crush them a little bit to make sure that they fit nicely, that they go into the recipe. So here they are right here. So that we don't bust the bag, we're just going to open it first. And then we can take a rolling pin or a mallet. And I happen to have a nice heavy marble rolling pin. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to go ahead and smash the walnuts. And so that'll get them nice and crunchy, but they won't be too small. Hi Jamison, how are you doing today? I know there's a little bit of a glare behind me. Sorry about that. I'm trying to move the camera around to make sure we don't get it. Now the recipe is going to call for about a 1/2 cup of walnuts. Something like walnuts or nuts, those are things that you can do pretty much to your liking. If you like a heavier walnutty type of banana bread, you can add more nuts. You can even add pecans. It's completely up to you. If you're someone who wants peanuts in there because you like that peanutty crunch, that's all up to you. That's the great thing about baking. When you start adding in walnuts and dried fruit, you can put whatever you want in there. So we've got about a good 1/2 cup smashed up now. And I like these stainless steel cups. So with these stainless steel cups, we're making banana bread, Jameson. And this banana bread has no traditional milk. It's got almond milk in it instead of traditional milk. It also has margarine instead of butter. And I'm telling you, you can't tell the difference. This is actually the second request that I've had for this banana bread in just this 1 week. So we're going to take our walnuts. And put our walnuts in the cup. I can tell already right now, this half a cup of walnuts is probably not going to be enough for my mother. But I'm going to start with this just to see how it goes. And banana bread is one of those things where it's a great breakfast bread. You can have banana bread with butter. You can have banana bread with cream cheese. You can have it any way you like it. And it's also nice because, you know, I've been telling people I'm single. I like to cook, but I don't always like to let everyone know that I'm dating, that I like to cook, because instantly they think they're going to get a housekeeper and live-in chef. And I don't want to be that. But you kind of want to reel them in. So you want to make sure that you let them know that you got a little bit of skills. So breakfast is a great way to introduce your, in-kitchen talent to the prospective person that you're dating. So banana bread, it's great. You invite them over, have them come over for banana bread, some fresh fruit, nice little continental breakfast, bake them the fresh bread. That banana smell starts wafting through the house. Next thing you know, they're sitting at the table waiting. It's a good way to cook them. And then it's daytime. So you can go out to the beach, you can go hiking, you can do all those fun things, and it's much more of a less intimidating date. Dinner's got always so much to it. You want candles and you want the ambiance. Breakfast, easy going. You get in, you eat, you get out. It's perfect. So we've mixed up the wet ingredients. And exactly, too much faster. So we've mixed up the wet ingredients, and now we're going to add our dry ingredients. So like I was saying before, you want to make sure that you don't incorporate your dry until you're ready, because if you mix your dry ingredients with the wet too soon, you're going to develop too much protein in the bread, and it's going to be very, very chewy. So remember, I mixed all the dry together. So here I've got my flour, my baking soda, and I've got my salt. So we're going to put all this in the mixing bowl at once. And I'm going to turn it on low because, one, I don't want the flour flying everywhere. So you just go ahead and tap it in there and let it incorporate slowly. The one thing about baking is it takes patience. You want to make sure that you take your time. When you rush through baking, that's when you have mistakes. That's when your cake falls. That's when you forget an ingredient. And you definitely don't want that to happen. So just take your time. And again, if your date is over your house, it's a nice opportunity for you to take your time and talk to them while you're baking. So we've got all the flour in there. We want to make sure that we scrape down the edges because it's very important to get all the stuff that's on the side. So we're going to grab a spatula and we're going to scrape down these edges. Okay, so make sure, this sounds really simple, but it's not. Turn off the mixer before you scrape the bowl because, when I was first getting started, that was one of the mistakes I made, and the spatula went flying through the kitchen, and not only did the spatula go flying, I was this close from getting my hand in there. So just make sure you turn off the mixer and go ahead and scrape down the bowl. Now remember, we don't want to mix it too much because we've got that flour in there, so we don't want a chewy banana bread. And we're only going to mix it enough just to get the flour incorporated. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and add our walnuts. After your batter's mixed, that's when you want to add in your fruit, your dried fruit or your nuts. You add that after your batter is mixed. And we're going to grease a loaf pan, just the bottom of the pan. If you grease the edges, it can tend to burn the sides of the banana bread, and you don't want to do that. Okay, so that part's done. What you'll notice in your bowl, and I'm going to show you in a second, you're going to notice that there are going to be clumps of margarine in the bowl. It's okay. Margarine is fat, and it will melt. So you don't have to worry about trying to get all those clumps out. You can see them there. If you get all those clumps out and you do that, your batter is going to be really, really chewy. So you don't want to do that. All you want to do is incorporate it to where the flour is moistened and get that part done, because the butter, the fat, it's all going to melt when you put it in the oven. So that part you don't have to worry about. So once again, with our spatula, we're just going to make sure we scrape it. We get all the good stuff off. And I'm just going to let this bowl sit here for a second while I get my loaf pan. And while I get my loaf pan, I'm going to go ahead and grease the bottom of that. Now with the loaf pan, what I use for grease, I actually have to use shortening. And shortening sticks now come, shortening sticks come in the same way that margarine does, which is nice. So you don't have to worry about measuring it out. And a quick trick that I like to do is I like to take a paper towel and just use the paper towel to go ahead and wipe the shortening in the bowl. And I can see that glare is catching you again. So let me turn that for you there. All right. So what I have is a loaf pan that's Pyrex. And it's actually okay. Any kind of loaf pan will do. So this one is made out of glass, which is Pyrex material. That's ovenable. So it's oven safe. So you can put this in the oven and it's okay. This is the shortening stick. So with shortening, you're going to get in a stick like this. Now, if you, for example, don't like margarine or butter, you actually can bake with this. You can bake with these shortening sticks. And there is a brand out there that has a butter flavored baking stick made out of shortening. It's pure fat, not the healthiest in the world, but it definitely would do. So what I do is I just pinch a little bit of it off, put it on my paper towel, and then I go ahead and I wipe the inside of the baking dish of the loaf pan. And like I said, we just want it on the bottom. We don't want it all over the sides. And remember, we've got our crushed walnuts. So we're going to take our crushed walnuts, and now we're going to put this in the bowl. You said, is that healthier than butter? No, it's all fat. Fat is bad pretty much any way you go. But for those like myself who can't have real butter, we don't really have a choice. Butter is going to be, in terms of non-manufactured and non-modified ingredients, butter is always going to be your best bet for that. And butter is naturally trans fat free. So while everybody's on this trans fat kick, butter and animal fat in general is trans fat free. So that includes lard. Lard is not that healthy, but it's very tasty and it's a very useful fat, but it is also trans fat free. So anything that's a solid fat naturally, like you churn butter and it turns to a solid, it's going to be healthier than margarine. But unfortunately, I don't really have a choice in the matter, so I stick with margarine. And for me, margarine is slightly healthier than shortening, just because shortening tends to not be made with any other type of healthy oils. Like you can now get earth balanced margarine made from coconut, made from almond, made from soy. So those nuts have protein and they're also a healthier nut, whereas shortening, that's made from usually canola oil or really inexpensive shortening. Is just simply made with soybean oil, and it's hydrogenated. Both margarines are hydrogenated, and that process isn't healthy, which is why butter is a better fit, because butter's not hydrogenated. Was that too long of an answer? Sorry, it gets complicated, but that's the answer. So I'm going to take my walnuts. Some of them still are a little bit big, so I'm going to crunch them up a little bit with my hands and put them in there, because we want a lot of walnuts in this. So we're going to crush our walnuts, put these in here. The funny thing is I'm not a fan of walnuts by themselves. I don't eat them in the shell. During Christmas time, don't give me one of those nut and cheese baskets. I don't want that. But in banana bread, that's the only nut that I like in the banana bread is walnuts. I don't know if it's nostalgia, if it's because of my childhood, I'm not really sure, but that's the only nut that I like in there. So mind you, if I wasn't talking to you, I'd be talking to my date. That's if I had one, that's who we'd be talking to. And we'd be baking this and hoping that they're thinking to themselves, maybe this is a woman that can be in my kitchen baking bread. So we're going to stir this up. Get the walnuts incorporated. You don't want to put this back on the mixer just to fold the nuts in. You see how I'm just doing a light turn? You just want to fold the nuts and put those in. Now we're going to go ahead and put that into our loaf pan. Remember, it's already pre-greased. Put this in our loaf pan. And do you remember what the oven is supposed to be on? 350. So put this in the loaf pan. Get the bowl, make sure you scrape it. When I was little, I had to scrape the bowl. I didn't care what it was. As long as it had sugar in it, I wanted to scrape the bowl. So we're going to put this in there. And we're going to go ahead and put this in the oven. Now this is going to bake for about 50 minutes, 50. So you want to put it in for 50 minutes first. And then you're going to take a toothpick or a long, like a wooden dowel or a skewer. A wooden skewer is great for this. You're going to take a skewer and put the skewer in this to test it to see if it's done. And the way you know if bread or cakes and things like that are done is if it comes out clean. Okay? If it comes out and there's little bitty particulates stuck to it, it's not ready yet. Okay, so we put our banana bread in the oven, and like I said, it's going to bake for about an hour. At this point, what you do is you clean up the kitchen, and I keep referring to that date that's supposed to be sitting out there waiting for me. So